it is important for us to recognize that we owe a debt. We owe a debt of gratitude and an appreciation to those people who came before us, who made it possible for us to come, each of us. And that's what each of us is doing now, is we're making it possible in our own ways for people to come in the future. Well, I've often thought of those early years and the beginnings, this large piece of property and the buildings, and a very, very small group of people, and a very, very limited amount of resources, financial and otherwise, and how that very small, dedicated group of people started this with Tadaroshi. And we're here at the very beginning when it was really an idea and a little bit more. As Tadaroshi often said, they were just going to do it like it was happening. So they started right away with a schedule and doing sessions and had many, many different ideas about how they might generate income, most of which never came to be. But I arrived in late 84, early 85 on a Sunday morning. I remember we were late. The Zendo, the Sangha, the service was so much more than I had ever imagined. There were not that many people there, but there were a lot more people than I had ever practiced with, so it seemed full to me. I remember the dining room afterwards, talking to Tadaroshi in front of the fireplace. He was very present, probably introducing himself to every new piece of meat that walked in the door, both to encourage their interest in the Dharma and hoping that they might stick around, which turns out I did. The growth, the changes, it was also happening along with the development of Buddhism in the country. Buddhism was becoming known within the public eye and ear. I know that Dado had visions of the ways in which we would grow and the way this community would take shape. He was a very good blend of having this very strong spiritual personal drive and this great love for the Dharma, and in that way really being a student of the Dharma, and also having a good worldly sense. The environmental work was part of Tadaroshi's vision from the beginning. The monastery store and making teachings available, the kids programs, which he really wanted us to be doing and had very particular ideas about what he wanted us to do. The New York City Sangha and the affiliates went through various evolutions and iterations, the New York City Sangha being the most significant, in particular with the purchase of the temple in Brooklyn, really establishing that as a more permanent place of training. The prison Sangha began very simply. We never had a plan to do that. As registrar, I just started getting letters. And that was really the beginning, along with Tadaroshi's physical involvement at Greenhaven. The arts, of course, was always important. That was there from the beginning. He was really an artist. It was really a point of emphasis for him in so many of his teachings. Every piece of it came to us, and then we just kept meeting it and growing it in that way. I had only ever known Tadaroshi as my teacher in a living presence, as the abbot, in a very embodied way. His strength, his energy, his voice, his physical body, his decision-making, his guidance, all of that was all I had ever known. And I remember when he called us over here that afternoon to tell us about his diagnosis of having end-stage cancer, and he started to lay out his vision, his thoughts about how things should go with his passing. Sometimes your life changes in a moment, and you only recognize that in retrospect. And sometimes your life changes in a moment, and you know in that moment that has occurred. We all knew that our lives had changed suddenly and would not bear the fruit of that changing for some time to come. But we did find our way, and with seeds long planted, continued growing in ways that I think would have surprised even us. At every sort of 5 or 10 year period when we would stop and reflect back and look forward, it was pretty clear what the things were we needed to be doing. The building of the Sangha house and then the current building of the Jizo house. The racial justice work that began in the city in the 2000s, I felt that was very important, has continued to become more and more important. The thing I think the most about is how do we have respect and reverence for our tradition, which is really the boat that we travel together in. How to maintain that. And so I'm very interested to see what happens in the next 5 or 10 years, and what the Sangha in particular feels is important for us to be doing. I think it's clear that the racial and environmental justice work will continue. I think what will happen in our country and in the world over the next decade or decades is going to be very crucial and instrumental in terms of what does that mean for us as practitioners, as a community, and the intersection of crises, of COVID, of climate crisis, of our 400 years plus history of racial injustice and genocide within our country in terms of our indigenous peoples. This pandemic, this world outbreak of sickness has brought us to this keen recognition of impermanence and the ever-evolving nature of life and our world and our consciousness that is always taking place within karmic causes and conditions, which includes past, present, and the future. I find it very challenging to think about our future, yet we have to, and we are. Not in isolation, even as we are isolated, but together.
May we open our doors as wide as we can and offer Dharma, nourishment, warmth, strength, laughter, love, and joy to all who come and to all who would but cannot.
May we continually learn to take care of ourselves, to take care of each other, to take care of this planet. May we rejoice in each other's happiness.
May we uphold and transmit the depth of the Dharma and be more creative and more courageous in how we embody the love.
Let's continue to allow for our full selves to be seen and heard with wisdom and spaciousness.
And may we realize the Buddha way together.
The Buddha way.
And
may we realize the Buddha way.
And may we realize the Buddha way together.